Hello all! Today I'll be working on a hypoallergenic scarf made from donated yarn from a follower. This is a really great beginner's project for a rigid Heddle loom, and I hope you enjoy. My name is Took. I'm a disabled genderqueer weaver who's had life take odd turns, but who knows that even tattered and worn yarn still has value, and that tired joints and health flares don't have to stop the journey. I weave exclusively with secondhand fibers, aided with adaptive warping, HR and OSHA cats, and a wonderful found family. Welcome to Hawksong Weaving, where all our paths are a little bit warped. A bit of an explanation on why I've developed this adaptive warping method. I have hypermobile Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, which has cascaded into postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome. Gesundheit, I know. So for time's sake, know that I have joints that don't work, and if I shift positions too quickly, I get pre-syncope or pre-fainting symptoms. All of this comes with chronic pain, so for a lot of reasons, a traditional warping board doesn't work for me, along with being really expensive and taking up a lot of space in my small studio. So I use an accordion coat rack as my warping board. It's nice and neat, it contracts into a nice smaller space, and I can adjust it as I need to. And I don't need to be up and down and all around, and having tachycardia, a racing heart, that stresses out my medical alert cat Penelope Calico. This is what's called a direct warping method. I'm literally attaching the warp to the back apron bar as I do this, as I'm measuring it out. And you'll notice that it will bulk up around the pegs over time. Having an asymmetrical warp towards the end is not uncommon, and is why I tend to prefer to warp with thinner gauge yarns, but often that's less of an option, so I'm just getting things done. Over time, with this particular method, you can figure out how long a particular project is going to be based on what pattern of pegs that you're winding around. This particular type of warping tends to make people who learn to weave with a lot of very strict math twitch, but it's very effective, especially for a beginning weaver where you're really just trying to build the muscle memory rather than focusing on all of the fine, intricate details that will come with later weaving. I have the muscle memory built up, so this particular warp took me about 10 minutes, but that is going to take longer if you are a beginning weaver until you have that muscle memory just completely locked in. That takes time, and please be patient and gentle with yourself during that beginning process. You can see that I ran out of that more green yarn, so I added a little bit more of the smoky blue towards the end. This is not an issue as long as you're making sure that your warp has the same amount of stretch all the way across the various yarns. This is why I genuinely recommend working with acrylic yarn as a beginning weaver, because the warp can just take more hits. It's not going to stretch in weird ways that natural fibers can, and it's a lot more forgiving. I've lifted up the loom to release the warping board from the loom, gathered the warp threads into one large bundle, and used the back of my neck to drape them over and keep them tidy and out of the way while I collapse the warping board. I'm using terry cloth towels to cushion the warp threads. This helps prevent the finished weaving from being tighter at the ends and looser in the middle, creating a sort of sausage profile in the weaving. This loom is a 15-inch wide shocked cricket loom. It's a rigid Heddle loom, and I love it so much. It's birch, it's very sturdy, it can take a beating, but it's light enough that I can lift it even when I'm having a pain or fatigue day. It's also one of the cheapest looms on the market, averaging around $250 at the time of filming. You'll note that I'm finger combing towards the end of the warp, just making sure that things aren't layering over each other, double layered, all that jazz. And you'll see what I mean about the asymmetricness of the warp tugging the middle, because there was a little bit of sausaging even with the terry cloth towels. But just, yeah, like you can see that the right hand end of the warp is a lot longer, and that's just because it built up and around those pegs, and that's just how layers work. The way I warp has me cutting the warp loops at the end of winding the warp. This is what's easiest on my body. It won't work for everyone, but that's okay. This isn't a great angle, but I'm being careful to pay attention to how the warp threads are laying on the back bar of the loom, and the right-hand thread goes through the smaller hole in the rigid Heddle reed. It's not critical, and some minor mistakes aren't the end of the world, but it does make it easier to keep the tension of the warp threads even across the entire weaving. I'd like to thank you for watching. If you'd like to support my work, some free ways to do that are to like, subscribe, or follow, and share. This applies to other small artists as well. It's a great way to let the social media algorithms know that this is content worth watching. If you'd like to support me financially, there's a Buy Me a Coffee linked below, which acts as sort of a tip jar. Also, now that there are so many of you absolutely fantastic and wonderful subscribers, I've been able to link the online Hawksong Weaving shop, so feel free to check out the unique handwoven products. I'm currently having a sale on scarves for the summer using code SUMMERSCARF20. It is posted very prevalently on the website. Because y'all won't stop mailing me yarn and I'm running out of storage space, which is a very good problem to have, but it is a consistent issue. And also, just this next bit is absolutely a joke, but just in case, in this economy, I won't say no. For $1,000 a month, you can tell me that I'm not actually disabled, I'm just lazy, and to try whatever yoga, juice cleanse, snake oil nonsense fixed your cousin. Feel free to message me and I'll get you my payment deets. I take Cash App, Venmo, PayPal, and check for this nonsense. Feel free to mail the check, or more locally, donations of yarn, buttons, etc. to the P.O Box listed down below. If you're able to direct your attention and a bit of energy towards the Mill River Marginalized Artist Collective, it's a non-profit that I helped found but had to step away from because my health wouldn't allow me to stay as involved, but it's providing a helpful service in my area to marginalized artists, so all of their information is linked down below as well. Attaching the warp to the bottom apron bar is pretty easy. I finger comb it, get it separated into bits about 4 to 5 warp threads wide, separate these bits into 2, and then do a half hitch tie to the apron bar. If your fingers are hypermobile, please be careful when doing this, as the pressure can bend them backwards, and that is not comfortable, and it is a guaranteed way to build arthritis over time. Do as I say, not as I do. Now getting the second terry cloth towel into place, and I did not fully get this properly in, and it was crooked, and it was driving me nuts for the entire rest of the weaving process. So do actually take your time with this step, and don't put things in at an angle. It's very annoying. It does not actually make a difference in the weaving itself, but it's one of those minor things that just like, oh, this is making my eye twitch. I prefer to weave at a fairly high tension, so I am cinching the warp even more just to get it nice and tight. Again, for a beginning weaver, this is where weaving with acrylic really comes in handy. Just it's able to withstand a lot more tension more easily than naturally spun or natural fibers. I start my weaving in an upward shed position and just getting things done, a nice little tail, popping that down. And the key for the selvages that I use, and again, I get compliments from weavers every single time I'm at a market and there's another weaver there, so they're like, holy crap, how are your selvages like that? 45-degree angle in the shed, then down. Pinching at the edge of the selvage while you're passing the yarn through, making sure it's snug but not too tight. And for beginning weavers, I genuinely recommend every time you sit down to weave at least 5, preferably 10 minutes of conscious weaving using the pinch 45 tug method. That sounds awful given current political things. I apologize for that image in people's heads. But pinch, 45-degree angle, and then slam down. And that will help build up the muscle memory, and it's a really good method, and it'll get you those incredibly straight and narrow those straight selvages that are just make everyone go, how the heck are you doing that? Anyways, now I'll shush and there'll be some nice weaving with some pretty music. I've been weaving nonstop for about 3 years, so that took me maybe an hour, 2 hours. And now it is time to tie off the scarf fringes. I prefer to do 2x2 warps tied into a fringe of 4, but I will do a double sliding knot of 3 if I don't have a wide enough warp. But again, acrylic, this is just knotting up very beautifully. It's just, oh, this scarf turned out really, really lovely, and I'm quite pleased with it. the moment of truth, unrolling and seeing the entire piece. I'm so happy with how this turned out. Checking for sausaging as I go. Oh, the annoyance of that crooked terry cloth towel was very, very frustrating. But getting things tied off on this end as well, and then the joy that is tying knots for a solid 15 to 20 minutes. Because this is an acrylic scarf, I'm not steam blocking it. Also, it's a soft enough weave and, it's got that drape to it already that I'm not necessarily wanting to make it softer or go in on itself a bit more. But you'll see that I'm finger combing out the fringe, and I'm taking my, don't ask me how much I spent on these good shears, and trimming it. The final step is, again, between 15 to 30 minutes of tying off the fringe knots. This isn't an absolutely critical thing, but it does make the piece feel a bit more polished and finished, and it's just a nice touch for a gift or for something that you're selling or even keeping for yourself. You deserve nice things too. And trimming off that little bit of the tail now that it's been fully tied down, and just finishing things up. And here we go. And here's the finished project. I'm so incredibly pleased with how this turned out. This is a quick and simple project. It's a great scarf, and it's just good. And we've got Penelope Calico over here in the corner judging me because I had my coffee and my heart is doing some thumpy thump things in response. But just, it's a great project. It's simple. And I'm so glad that you came along with me while I wove this. I'm so glad for the odd turn that your path took that brought you here. Thank you for spending time with me at Hawksong Weaving, where we're all a bit warped, and I hope that you have a truly excellent week.